Hey, what's going on? It is Rad. I am your host of SOFREP Radio, and I have a very cool guest today. But first, before I introduce you to him, the author, I want to talk about our book club that we have at sofrep.com/book-club. Go read a book curated by some of the special forces guys that are behind the scenes that help power me to do this. They're out there picking books out like, hey, read the Babe Ruth story. Maybe there's something in there, okay? Baseball. Go check out the book club. Also, our merch store, sofrep.com/merch. We got all the cool branded, torch lights and lighters and shirts and memorabilia. Thank you for all of the tags. We really appreciate the SOFREP tags on the internet. Keep that up, okay? Now, I take a big breath because this person has quite a bit to say about, I have quite a bit to say about them. And I kind of have their breakdown here. So let me first introduce you to retired Major General Mick Ryan, who is from Australia and worked in the Australian forces with our NATO allies. And Mick, go ahead and say hi.
Hi, how are you, Red? It's great to be with you, mate.
You're great. We were just talking pre-show. You're going to be Angus from AC/DC, and I'll be ZZ Top from over here, and we're going to have a show together. Okay, we got this. I love this. So I want to read a little bit about you, if I may, Mick. Are you cool with that? Give me about 1 minute to read this.
Can I also be Phil Collins from Genesis?
Dude, yeah, as long as I can be Sledgehammer.
Why not?
You know those two. Genesis, come on, we got to get it on. All right, so let me talk about Mick. Mick Ryan is a retired Major General in the Australian Army and a distinguished graduate of Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, as well as the USMC Command and Staff College and the United States Marine Corps School of Advanced Warfare. Ryan is a passionate advocate of professional education and lifelong learning. He has commanded at platoon, squadron, regiment, task force, and brigade levels. Ryan has also led strategic planning organizations in the Australian Army and led several reform programs in the past decade. He is a fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies at the Lowy Institute, and he is the author of War Transformed, The Future of 21st Century Great Power, Competition, and Corruption, which has been out there since 2022. And also, you have another book called The War for Ukraine, Strategy and Adaptation Under Fire. Look at that. There's the book. So those of you that are able to watch and see, he has his book up there. It's got colors on it. It's yellow, red. What colors are on that? Yeah, yellow and red. Basically Russia and Ukraine. Okay. I see somewhere in there
with a bit of red.
What color would Moldova be in there? I just want to know.
We're not talking about Moldova.
Now, welcome to the show. And you have such experience. You've been in the global conflict since when? When did you join the military? Can you tell me that?
Joined in 1987. Which doesn't feel like a long time ago, but you look at a calendar, it is. So I actually started as a big failure. I spent a year at our academy studying engineering, and I failed every single course, all 8, in the first year, which I know is still a record because I went back as the commander of the academy at one point. But I got a second chance, and here I am.
Right. And so when you went back as the commander, did you say, I want to see my file? Like, let me see who has more than me.
I didn't need to, but I was very open about my own failures with the cadets because I didn't want them to think that, a single failure is the end of everything. I think too many young people think that these days. And, I said, well, you do fail every now and then. It's not the end of things. You can learn from it. But I also wanted to say to them that, second chances are important, both for those who give them and for those who receive them.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. Whether it's second chance on a test or second chance on a test at life, someone who's done the crime, done the time, gets out, should have a second chance. If that's the case, they've been judged by their peers and things like that. I'm a big believer in that too. So I like that philosophy.
We all fail.
Yeah.
I think more leaders need to talk about their own personal failures. We don't always do that very well. And I was lucky that when I became a general, I met the general who kicked me out of the academy and really changed my life in a very positive way. It was a very moving thing, and like I said, second chances change those who give them and those who receive them.
Now, how old were you when you became a cadet in Australia?
17.
17 is the
I
age,
was,
huh?
was a young, immature boy from a small country town who didn't realise the opportunity that he'd been given, but did enjoy the nightlife in Canberra as it was at that time. But I think a year of failure taught me a lot of things, and I got my act together and got through officer training afterwards.
Yeah, so you went in enlisted, right? And then you got your officer candidacy after.
Uh, you go to the academy as a cadet, and then when I failed, I got sent to the officer training school as an officer cadet, and did far better at that than I did at
Hmm.
my academic studies the year
Hmm.
before. Um, and I learned a lot, and I had a really wonderful career. I think the army gave me far more than I could ever return to it. And it was an honour to be able to serve my country for just over 35 years. But I'm
Yeah.
still a reserve major general, and I still do mentoring in different army units in brigades and help our guys who are getting ready to go train Ukrainians. I spent some time just last week at another one of our battalions doing that. So
Hmm.
there's nothing better than spending time with soldiers.
So I've had some folks on from inside of the Ukraine lines, and I've interviewed them and heard some stories. And, some of them are talking about the 20-year-old who had no combat experience in Ukraine, who played a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of video games, understood technology as a young man growing up. And then you have a 50-year-old salty dog who has learned some Russian tactics in his lifetime. And now they're kind of trying to defend the trenches together. And so the young kid's like, I got an idea. Let me hook this little device up to this drone. The old guy's like, I'm just going to go bayonet him. He's like, wait, whoa, 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 watch. You can watch. So what's your thoughts on this situation where they have to adapt to such a trench warfare / warfare?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ukrainians have proven themselves to be extraordinarily innovative. Very first day of the war, you had private citizens with drones ringing up their mates in territorial forces saying, hey, how can we help? And just getting on with it and doing it. They weren't asking for permission. They weren't going through official chains of commands. And, that happened more and more often. And then the military started taking notice. And, it's led to now having independent drone service. But I think the Ukrainians are certainly better learners. They're more innovative. They have more
Mm-hmm.
grassroots innovation than the Russians do. And that's stood them in good stead. And, I also think they have real purpose. They're fighting for a good cause, unlike the
Agreed.
Russians. And I think that also makes a very big difference. And it doesn't matter whether you're an 18-year-old recruit or a 50-year-old on the front line. That common purpose means a lot.
Let me ask you about some insight that you may or may not have. You can say, I don't know anything about this, Rad. So let's say the Russian forces, are not doing the appropriate thing right now, but they're being told to do what they're doing and they're not given information. Do you think that they know what they're doing, these Russian soldiers, or do you think that they're just getting like bits of information and go fight this way? So could they, almost like the farmer infantryman who's been, conscripted, can he not be forgiven if it was to stop? You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I think they know enough to know
okay.
what they're doing isn't right. I mean, it's why they're looting and all this kind of thing. That's why they mistreat Ukrainian POWs and in occupied areas they rope and murder and kidnap locals. They know enough to know what they're doing isn't right, regardless of what rank they are. But their senior officers know what's right, what's wrong, or at least they should.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't have any sympathy for them. And, we shouldn't be giving them a break. It should be helping Ukraine destroy as much of the Russian military as we possibly can as
Mm-hmm.
part of their plan for victory.
I agree with your sentiment on that. And thank you for your insight. I would say that here in the US, when I talk to people just in a casual conversation, which is tough to do these days, to meet somebody you don't know, have a casual conversation without getting at each other's throats and trying to hear one another's points. It's like, are you ready for a surface to air missile to just blow up the gas station next to us while we're talking? Just out of nowhere. Just, we've all seen footage from, the beginning back in the 2022, let alone Crimea when they came over and shot down aircraft. The Russians were shooting down civilian airliners. Are we ready for that to happen here? And I say we have to support, those that are putting the fight in Ukraine right there, because then it's too late if it comes here.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it in the last 48 hours in Poltava and Lviv, where
Hmm.
the Russians have targeted, Lviv in particular, killing whole families for absolutely no reason other than to terrorize the Ukrainians. I think the Ukrainians are showing us two things. One, that we shouldn't take for granted the systems that we live in and benefit from and generate prosperity for our people, which is very important. We shouldn't take them for granted.
Right.
And secondly, in not taking them for granted, that has a cost. It has a financial cost, but it has a cost in human sacrifice. Unfortunately, it's the Ukrainians doing it at the moment, but it might be more of us if we don't support the Ukrainians to help them win this war.
Right. Right. And they have the grit to do it. They're not going to just
They have
roll over.
incredible grit.
Yes.
I've been there multiple times
Mm.
since the start of the war. Honoured to know many Ukrainians and been there. We had a couple of Ukrainian soldiers just visiting Australia. I was part of that, a small part of that. And I'm already planning my next trip back there. And, there's a huge, amazing culture in Ukraine that is not what Putin tells us, just a part of Russia. It's an entirely distinct, very old culture, very proud of its history, and is worth fighting for. And for many young Ukrainians, and not so young Ukrainians, unfortunately, been worth dying for.
Right.
Our whole aim should be to minimise that suffering and help them to win quickly.
When they gave up their nuclear arsenal in the 90s to, agree to be their own sovereign land, that we all agreed them to be this. And Russia at the time, Soviet Union, Russia, the Federation, however they want to describe themselves, the empire today, whatever he wants to try to classify it, they also agreed to all of that, and then, their current president, Vladimir Putin, he just keeps recycling himself into some political office to stay within the powers to control either Medvedev or, he takes over as the president or prime minister, or now he's got an extra 6 years, added on to his new current election that was supposedly, truthful and,
Well, I think we all know the truth of elections in places like Russia. They're not really elections, they're coronation events. And, to think that there was a period when a certain US president said he looked into Putin's soul, I mean, obviously didn't look deep enough, because this is one evil character, an indicted war criminal,
Oh yeah.
and someone that has not given a second thought to large-scale murder
No.
of Ukrainians and, frankly, the large-scale deaths of his own people in pushing this war. I mean, the world would be better off if people like Putin and his like just didn't exist, but unfortunately they do.
Right. And then they have their little, I call them like the fish that swim by sharks to eat whatever's all around them. Those guys are like, hey, boss. Yeah, boss. Yeah. Whatever you want, boss. I'll get that fish for you, boss. Those
Yeah,
guys are kind of,
they're a mafia gang.
yes,
They're not a
exactly.
government.
Yeah.
Mafia gang, and the Chinese Communist Party is not that dissimilar in that regard. We just don't pay enough attention. But people like Putin and Xi actually tell us what they're going to do. They give speeches and they write papers and this kind of thing. They tell us what they're going to do. We need to listen to them more and then react to that rather than wait until they actually do it.
Right. Because they're sitting there. Here, we're going to do this. We're going to be strong. We're going to take over, or
And we're
et
going to
cetera.
take
It's like,
Taiwan. It's like, let's believe them and prevent that happening.
yeah, agreed. I agree. My friend's grandfather fought in the Taiwan army during the breakaway back in the day to have freedom, and I don't think that he would want that to go the opposite way. It's so crazy how the world is we're so close to each other. If we could just talk it out, look at you and me are talking it. You're in another country right now. I'm in another country. We're having this conversation. Why can't we not just, I don't know. That's an age-old question of why we just can't.
It's always because there's always someone who wants what someone else has without having to work for it.
Yeah, agreed. Holy cow. And that's not you. You have worked for where you're at. I mean, in the Australian Army, how many stars is a major general? Is that 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's same as in the US Army, 2 stars.
2 stars.
Yeah, we're not any different to you guys in that regard.
right? And then you guys have like your camouflage though. It's like a duck pattern though.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean,
I love it actually.
slightly different shades of green and brown in Australia than you see in America or Europe. So you've
Yeah.
got to kind of change it slightly. But it changes every few years. The army gets sick of the old pattern and decides to get a new one, and like the Marines do there, and the U.S. Army does. And I've always enjoyed looking at the Air Force
Often.
and Navy camouflage colors because I don't understand why the Navy has grey camouflage, because all it
Right.
does is hide you if you fall overboard in the ocean. Doesn't seem to
It
make a
should
lot of
be like
sense, but
orange. Yeah.
it should be bright yellow. Would make a lot of sense
Like
to
the
me.
Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard here, they have like bright orange kit. You know what I mean? Hmm.
Sometimes branding can get a little bit out of control, but anyway, that's fine. That's institutional branding. They like it, but yeah, for us, we have a
You know
slightly
why?
different.
Probably for the horizon, right? So like, let's say that they're scanning and the ship is gray and they're kind of wearing grays or dungarees and then they're scanning. So they kind of blend in with the ship per se at the horizon.
It
I
looks
don't
cool.
know. Yeah, I'm just trying to give it a thumbs up. Go Navy. I do love the Navy.
Me
Don't
too.
touch our boats. Don't mess with
No,
the
I
boats.
agree. I agree. I love our Navy too.
Yes, all you carrier fleets out there, you go. Okay, you do your thing and be smiling while you're doing your job. Getting your mail off of another boat to a boat. That's so crazy, dude.
They certainly they eat better than us guys in the army. That's for sure.
Well, as they should. They're the Navy. And if you want to join the Navy, go talk to a Navy career advisor. Get some good food. Now, now you come from a referral from a friend, Mark, over at Skydio. And Mark was former F-16 fighter pilot. We had him on the show.
Yep.
Now, you're also tied in with Skydio a little bit as well. And there's a conference, and you're going to be attending that here in the U.S., correct? That's like on the September 24th.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a strategic advisor there, along with some really eminent Americans. I'm quite humbled to be in that group, and really proud to be part of the team that Skydio's assembled for Connect 24. I'll be speaking. I think it's the 26th, and it'll be a conversation about where are we with drones? What are some important trends? Where do we think this might go in the future, and what's that mean for military institutions, but also national security in countries like the United States, Australia, and our friends around the world.
Yeah, that's something that I think we'll be able to have typed out in the bottom. I know there's going to be a virtual link that people can join.
Yep.
Anybody that listens to this and wants to go to the event, you'd have to register through Skydio. So Skydio.com, I believe is what that is. So you would go there, register if you're going to be in person. But if you want to attend the virtual conference this September, it's going to be Skydio.com/ascend. So you would go to /ascend at Skydio.com, and then you can register for the virtual. You're going to be there. You're just going to be virtually there, like the holographic images in Star Wars. We need your help. We need your help. You know how Leia was like coming through R2? That's you, but it's going to be the general and you. So you're
Well,
going to enjoy it.
she was projected by R2D2, not coming through him, but
True, true.
I am a Star Wars tragic, I'm afraid.
Okay, you corrected me, sir.
That's my
You know,
Star Wars knowledge, not my military rank that did that.
Boba Fett uses an M60 receiver for his main long rifle in his statue figure. If you look at it, it's a full M60 receiver, and then they probably made like a round shroud that went around it like a tube to make it look like a laser, but it's an M60.
Those guys and girls who make those models and stuff, that was what I wanted to do as a young kid. My dream was just to make X-wing models to blow them up in movies, which that would have been awesome. But now I get to talk about blowing up Russian drones, so I guess that's okay.
Yeah, you kind of stayed on the course of something. Okay.
Well, I was a combat engineer in the army, and one of the things we do is blow stuff up, and we're able to do it legally and in a very big way. So that was a very enjoyable part of my career in the army, and I got to do it a lot.
Did you deploy as an engineer with your teams, like into war zones and blow stuff up in war zones?
Yeah, I did 3 operational deployments. Did one to East Timor on the border in 2000. I was part of an infantry battalion. took combat engineers there. I went to Iraq. I wasn't a combat engineer there. I was a planner for General Petraeus and General Dempsey on their
Hmm.
headquarters in Baghdad. And then I took a combined arms regiment to Afghanistan, engineers, cavalry, infantry, and others in 2006, 2007. So, I had a pretty good run, had some really interesting deployments that I commanded, learned a lot, and reinforced the value of good training, but also having good technology, and learned a lot about why things like drones are really, really important now and into the future.
Can I ask you, in Australia, did 9/11 hit you like it hit us over here? Is that something that you guys all stopped for? You remember where you were at,
Yeah, I think they did, but I wasn't in Australia. I was at Quantico on nine
oh,
eleven, so I was, not that far south
no.
of the Pentagon.
So you were at Quantico?
Yeah, I was a student on Command and Staff College, and that morning actually was the one day of the course where we were talking about counterterrorism operations. So it was enormously distressing. One, to see it live on TV, but to see the faces of my friends in the Marine Corps, to realise that someone hated them so much that they would do this to civilians,
Mhm.
in major American cities, just out of the blue. And as you know, everything changed. Everything changed after that. Society changed. Traveling changed.
Everything changed.
We all began these deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that. But no, I was humbled but honoured to be alongside my friends in the Marine Corps on that day in Quantico, and I think we're a much closer group because of it. We're all still in contact. We still all get together. I've worked with them in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, and in the Pentagon. It had a profound impact on a lot of us because it changed the course of not just history, but the course of our own careers.
Hmm.
And it's something that I think stands out as one of those points in the early 21st century.
So were you getting a phone? What rank were you, do you think, at 2001?
I was a major.
A major. So did you get a phone call
As
like, hey, major, we're going to need your team. You guys are going to have to come.
No, I did check with home, and they said, no, you can stay there. We'll need you when you get back. But I then stayed on for that second year course. Many of the guys on that course did deploy for a couple of months to Iraq, but then came back and shared their lessons.
Oh,
But not long after I got home to Australia, I was sent to Iraq, and then the next year I was sent to Afghanistan. So I certainly got to use what the Marines taught me, and still use it to this day, because what they teach is critical
sure.
thinking and communication, which is enormously valuable in the military, but in lots of other endeavors as well.
Can I take you to the moment when you landed in Iraq for your first time and you're still a young man and a major, probably in your 30s or so? And was it stepping off the plane? Was it breathtaking? Was it heat? What was your thoughts when you got off that?
It was breathtaking because it was so damn hot. I mean,
Mm.
it was really hot. And you're covered in body armor and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a little bit of a shock to the system. It's just so hot in Iraq in summer. I mean, it's hot and very, very dry. But I felt I was very well prepared by my own training. I had some just amazing people I got to work with in Iraq. Some of the fellow officers I work with, and senior non-commissioned officers were just extraordinarily courageous and professional. And we spent a lot of time on the roads around Baghdad, going up to different places where we were training Iraqis. And, I got to spend a lot of time with young US soldiers, young Marines. Under me, I had a company of convoy escort guys called the Rough Riders. And there was even, a
Rough
couple of Navy
Riders.
guys who said, I got sick of looking at screens and doing nothing. So he volunteered to be a gunner on convoy escorts in the middle of Baghdad at the worst of the war. I mean, just
Yeah.
amazing commitment and courage by these young people, and it's why I kind of raise my eyebrows when people talk about the current generation not being up to the kind of sacrifices of previous generations. It's rubbish. We're seeing it in Ukraine, and we
Hmm.
see it from our young people again. They just need good leadership and purpose, and
You know,
they will
I
stand up like every other generation.
agreed. I have friends who are like in their 20s who are in the Navy or in the Army. And for people to say that our military is not ready, I look at him or her and I'm like, they seem pretty ready. Okay. They seem like they're ready. And when they talk to me, they're like, we're ready. I'm like, I feel good about that. You know, maybe someone from the ground up telling you like, we're ready. So I have confidence, because, you know, like you said, you were 17 when you went in,
Yep.
right? I was 21. So like these young people are ready to go and defend right versus evil.
Yep. Yeah,
That's it.
it's not the young people in the brigades or squadrons or naval task forces or the Marine Mews that ever let us down. They never do. It's people more senior who either give them the wrong missions or don't do modernisation fast enough or
Right.
send them to the wrong places that
Right.
make the biggest mistakes. But, you know, I still get to work a lot with young soldiers in Australia, and they're just enormously impressive, very technologically literate. I spend a lot of time talking about lessons from Ukraine, and they don't wait to get direction. They just change. And some of the things they're doing around signature management and communications and drones and stuff is just really breathtaking compared to the army that I joined all those years ago.
Right. Right. There's no more cranking the generator on the radio. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like
No, well, they're certainly not riding bikes to keep them going, but you know,
riding bikes.
it's
That's a new one.
it's just a different organisation. It's same with the U.S. Army and Marines. I mean, we do change quickly.
Yes.
We do adapt more than people probably understand, and our junior people do have a lot of agency, particularly in units. It's when you get to capital cities where people mainly occupy cubicles that innovation and adaptation sometimes slows down.
And a lot of us may forget that the Marine Corps is just like a percent of the military here that goes into fight. But that percent of a percent is so lethal and so surgical at their job. They are like the blade, sharpened blade of the blade. It,
Yeah, I mean, the Marines are an amazing organisation. You know, they have a great history. You know, I'm
yes,
lucky. I served with the U.S. Army in Iraq, and I spent years with the Marines in Quantico, and I love them both. Sometimes I wish they'd love each other that much as well. They do have a bit of tension there,
there it is.
but they're different organisations with different roles and missions. And even with that institutional tension, they still know they're on the same side very clearly. And we see that in the Pacific with the Marines and US Army. We both work with them a lot. Um, and, you know, they're different, but they're both extraordinarily professional, capable, and lethal organisations. And I got to tell you, I'm really glad we're on the same side because I wouldn't want to come up against them.
No, no, my friend's dad, he was in Fallujah during Ramadi and Fallujah during all of that. And he was a gunner in the Marine Corps. You just would not want to come up. But today he's totally the nicest guy. He's like, hey, how you doing, Rad? I'm like, what's going on, sir? How you doing? Huh? But deep down in my mind, I know what was going on over there. I lived watching it on TV. Everybody had an embedded photographer from every single news outlet, whether you're GQ, Esquire, NBC, somebody was like capturing it. So here we are, this generation just being funneled straight up door kicking and flashbangs going off.
It's good. It's the training, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
training's very, very good in modern military institutions, and that's why we exchange instructors a lot, just to learn the best in training, whether it's dismounted combat, mounted combat, reconnaissance,
Right.
intelligence, logistics, all these things. But it's training, it's discipline, and it's good leadership. Those things pay off in battle. And, you saw it with the Marines in Fallujah.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the kind of discipline that they exercised, and it's hard to do, but that's what good professional forces are capable of.
Correct. I mean, they did try to avoid any type of religious mosque, like under orders, but others don't necessarily play by those same standards. There's other conflicts going on right now in the world where, it's just decimating the whole landscape of a certain,
Yeah.
like in Gaza right now, everything's just kind of leveled, like nothing's safe. It's just like,
Yeah, I mean, I get asked this question every now and then.
yeah, what's that?
Sometimes people say, "Well, why do we fight with a arm tied behind our back?" I said, because we're the good guys.
Yeah,
I mean that in a non-gender specific way, but that means something. To live the values of the society you're representing, that you're serving,
the
means
infrastructure.
something to us. We're the only ones allowed to lawfully go out and kill people. So you should do it responsibly and in accordance with the law, but also ethically. That's why Zelensky recently said, in the Kursk operation, we have to fight by the rules. That's really important, not just for the legitimacy of Ukraine and to ensure support from the West continues, but it's also about protecting the souls of our soldiers. Our soldiers matter,
Yeah,
and we need to protect them so that they don't suffer because what we're asking them to do on behalf of our country. It's bad enough when you're doing stuff lawfully and ethically, but we can't allow bad things to happen for all these reasons. But most important, we need to protect the souls of our soldiers.
yeah, agreed. They have to know that what they're doing is on the right side of things internally, so they can just say, this is why I'm doing this, or it's just, we've just sunk so low to
Hmm.
Lord of the Flies. That's just, I don't know if you
Yeah,
know
I mean
that novel. It's
that's
just,
not what professional militaries do.
no,
That's what marauding bands of thugs do. That's
exactly.
what the Russians do. That's not what we do. And that doesn't mean that everyone's perfect, and there are aberrations. There has been in the US military, certainly has been in mine throughout our history, even in Afghanistan. But, we're pretty good at picking these things up generally, and pretty good at punishing those people who do it generally, although there's also been exceptions to that. Because for the vast majority of our people, they don't accept that kind of behaviour. They know what right looks like, and they don't accept that kind of undisciplined conduct where people go out and deliberately murder non-combatants,
Hmm.
which is one of the worst things you can do.
You, very well spoken. I just want to let you know that. So thank you for putting it in eloquent terms of, you know, do what's right, but you still got to do what you got to do. But, you're doing it for the right reasons. I remember my dad. So my dad was a former Green Beret. And sometimes we would go to, I would always go to church. Sometimes he wouldn't show up because of drill or whatever weekend.
Mm.
But when he could make it, he would show up in his whole uniform. And I'd just be like,
Yeah, that's cool.
I was like, Dad, how come you get to wear your uniform to church and I have to wear this suit and tie? How come I can't wear my camouflage? And he's like, because what God knows what I do is right.
I must admit, when I did come home a couple of times from work, and my daughter might have had some of her friends, including a couple of boys round, and it did kind of pull them into line. There might have been one who departed as soon as I arrived home one day and never come back. I mean, I didn't say anything. I just walked in. But, having that uniform does have its uses with your kids every now
Yeah.
and then.
I love it. I love it. So there's something about, what he's doing is right, is what I'm putting out there too, and
Yep,
you showing up to
absolutely.
your home in your gear is the right thing to do. That dude splitting is the right thing to do. And your daughter listening to this, what's up?
She's a good kid.
I'm sure. I'm sure, General. I'm sure. 100%. And that's the thing is you get to have time now where you can, kind of recapture a lot of that you probably were so busy doing. Saturdays missed, baptisms missed, whatever functions, football games missed, all these different things that you were so dedicated to our NATO alliance.
Yeah, I mean, you do miss a lot of stuff when you serve your country. You do have to make sacrifices. Your
Mhm.
family makes a huge, huge number of sacrifices. I mean, the serving member does, but the families make huge sacrifices as well. And you miss things, and you miss parts of people's lives. I'm lucky now. My daughters are both pretty close. One of them has moved back in with them recently.
Sure.
So I'm getting to spend really good quality time with, these two girls who've grown into really impressive young women. And hopefully make up for some of those years where I was away or those long operational deployments.
That's right.
But, you never get that time back, but hopefully you can make up for them this time.
And you still seem fairly young. I mean, have you hit 50?
Yeah, I hit 50 5 years ago. So,
Okay.
yep,
You've hit,
I'm older than I look, but also
call sign
older than
Disney
I
Channel,
feel at
bro.
times.
Call sign Disney Channel.
Hey, nothing wrong with Disney Channel. That's where all the Star Wars is. So.
Yeah, exactly. And fun fact, I was on Disney Channel. I play in a show called The Luck of the Irish, where we go around and steal the kids' gold coin, and we do all the basketball scenes. Anyways, filmed here in Utah. Luck of the Irish. Go check it out. Go
I'll,
download that. Google it.
I'll check it out. With a name like Mick Ryan, anything Irish is good.
Oh yeah, my name was Sean in the show because I'm an Irish evil leprechaun. So when the kid's playing basketball at the junior high school, he looks at the referee and then he looks at us and he's like, "Are you gonna let these guys really play against me?" And he sees us with the beard and everything, and the referee looks at us and sees little kids. And so when the guy looks back at us, it's just, oh, he's just swarmed. It's actually comical, loving and very lighthearted. It's a good time to watch. Yeah, The Luck of the Irish, boyo.
Luck of the Irish.
That's
All
right.
right. For sure.
I'm going to plug myself. What's the point?
Why not?
That's
If
right.
you've got a podcast, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. I mean, I love talking with you. And I also want to know, as a strategic advisor for the company Skydio, Mark, he brought a lot of expertise with his pilot skills, and you bring a lot with, it sounds like planning and leadership. What advice can Skydio give our military right now? Is there something, are you guys tied in with that? Are you strategically working with DOD and?
Well, I mean, Skydio does a lot of interesting, has a lot of interesting products that, not just the military, but for other national security applications. But, I think companies like Skydio don't just provide a product, they provide a service which is about, quickly learning and evolving drone capabilities. Because what we've seen in Ukraine is if you've got a good drone today, your enemy will find ways to interfere with it. So you've got to constantly adapt it. So I think, companies like Skydio now, aren't just about developing and selling drones. They're about how do you constantly improve them with either upgraded versions of the one the military has or new versions to make sure they're survivable and capable and lethal and the enemy can't interfere with them.
Oh, I remember just seeing somebody put a flamethrower on it. And now, like on YouTube, look what I did.
What they use drones for, not just aerial but ground ones, is unbelievable now. Attacking other drones, recharging other drones, recovering enemy drones, laying mines.
Rock climbers that are at the top of a mountain that are working things. They have drones bringing gear up to them to drop to them now. You don't have to have a full-on helicopter. You can have a drone pilot down at the base of the mountain taking supplies up to.
Yep.
I mean, just those types of things, tactical to practical.
Yep.
Yep,
absolutely. I mean, I know in Australia the mining industry's used uncrewed vehicles for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Big trucks that have no drivers. I mean, you stay out of the way because these things are dozens of tons heavy, but it's just so many applications for uncrewed, not just aerial vehicles, which are really important, but also ground and maritime systems, which we've also seen the Ukrainians deploy and develop and continue to adapt throughout this war. So, we've seen this Cambrian explosion in the use of drones in the last few years, and I can't see that slowing down anytime soon. In fact, it might even accelerate over the next couple of years.
What was crazy is I went to this place in Las Vegas earlier this year. There's a big convention called SHOT Show. It's like, a really large gun show gathering of manufacturers and optic people, glasses are there, everything. We got to go to the Sphere in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's
I know what it is. I'd love to go.
Yeah. So I went and saw postcards from the Earth. Really, if you get to see it, or the Eagles, they're going to be there, but that's the $1,000 a ticket. But postcards from the Earth was really cool. But what I noticed is when I walked in, the Android that's inside the theater, you start to get engaged when you go in this place. And that I just felt not just facial recognition was all over me, but I was being slimed by like just every possible thing. Like I felt like it was seeing through me, or it could just see everything that I was wearing or my socks. They have a lot of technology inside this place. And when you go and talk to the AI bots, Okay. These android bots, these drone bots, they have the face of a human and then the side of all mechanics. And so as you're looking around them, there's like 100 people around them asking questions, and they point at you and then they ask you back the question. You're like, so what they're doing is it's just crazy. And those are the drones, the people
Yep.
drones. You're talking boats. But what happens if there's a people drone? All of a sudden now a people drone, like
Well, I mean, I think
John Connor.
there's certain billionaires who've promised to build these things. Now, whether humans will be comfortable with robots that look like them and talk like
Mhm.
them, act like them, we're yet to be seen. But there's certainly a lot of it in science fiction, and I've no doubt that we're going to see these things. Personally, I'd love one that could mow the lawn and clean the house and do the washing and the dishes. If you can provide me with one of those, actually, I'd probably be pretty impressed.
They just moved in.
I'm not going to give them a bedroom, but I'll certainly give them all the chores that they can handle 24/7. They don't have
I
to
mean,
sleep,
like,
right?
talk about multiplicity, where there's multiples of you. It's like, that could be problematic too, but it just really is just interesting to see. Like you said, there's just no stopping the situation and the technology. Even the internet itself is just about 30 years old, maybe, at 28, 30 years old. What happens to a 28-year-old? What are they doing in life when they're just still learning what they want to be? It's like, what do you want to be? Well, I'm still delivery driver for Uber. I'm still
No, and
deciding
it's
what
a journey. People go on at different speeds, right?
yeah,
People,
exactly.
some decide early, some decide late, some decide multiple times through their life. And, that's the great thing about living in our societies, is that our societies allow us to do that and choose our own pathways, and multiple pathways if that's what we wish.
Dude, you got 25
I
years till
like
you can
that.
run for a president still. Like here in
Yeah,
America,
that's
it's like,
right. Yeah.
oh, you're 78 or you're 81 or you're like 72. You want to put in 20? You got
I
20
think
years on you?
that door's closed to me, unfortunately. But there are over 300 million Americans, and I'm sure there's lots of talented Americans there that could do a very good job.
There are. We do. We have them. There are. It will be done. We'll continue to fly our plane somehow, some way. Like I say to people, you don't meet the pilot when you get on the plane, not 90% of the time. You don't know nothing about him, the navigator, but yet you
You
buckle
just
up
trust.
exactly that he's going to land.
Yep.
Even take off. Okay. Close the door too. All right. Just know where the switches are. So please just have a guy in there that knows where the switches are so you can at least look good for the photo. I just want to say, just land us. Okay.
Yep.
And with every country. Okay.
Yep.
Whatever the case is. Cause right now in Germany, things are changing over there. They had a whole new election, and I'm interested to see how that's going to play on Europe.
Yeah, they did. I mean, just over the last weekend was very interesting. I arrived just as that was happening in old East Germany. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to talk to German people here about the differences, the political differences between the previous West Germany and East Germany, and there are some differences there. But remember, on the other side of that eastern part of Germany, you've got Poland, who is one of the most staunch supporters of Ukraine and the US and NATO security posture in Europe. So, yeah, it's interesting that wedged between West Germany and old West Germany and Poland, you have this group of people who think the far right and almost pseudo fascists are what they want for government.
And let's just talk about how not long ago trying to cross into East Germany or out of it was getting shot in the trenches, right? So
Yeah.
my father-in-law, still alive, served a mission for his church over there in Germany, and they snuck across into East Germany. Yes. This was then. This was like probably in the sea. He went to Vietnam after his mission. So we're talking the 60s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because there was like a chick. I know it has to be a girl. It has to be for girls. Okay. The only reason why you're going to sneak into East Germany to meet somebody, I guess, to preach your gospel, but then he had to sneak back, and he talked about doing that. Like, it's no big thing. I'm just like, Elliot, bro, I'm glad you're
Well,
82 years old.
I'm going to Berlin on Friday for the first time. I'm actually looking forward to seeing where the wall was and Brandenburg Gate and the Reichstag and all these places.
Yes.
There's a lot of history there that I'm really, really fascinated in, and very keen to investigate while I'm there. I'll do a few other things with the think tank and stuff,
Yep.
but it's my first time in Germany, and I've really enjoyed and fascinated by what I've seen and what I will see.
Yeah, and don't forget one of the greatest bands in the world comes from Germany, and that's Rammstein. I just have to throw that out
Right.
there.
Okay.
If you're into Star Wars, bro, then
Of
Rammstein.
course. I like Hans Zimmer as a composer, so
Oh,
he's
Hans
he's my
Zimmer's great.
he's amazing. Anything he does is great. Especially if my bucket list is go see a Hans Zimmer concert live.
Oh, that'd be great. So we actually listen to Hans Zimmer in our background at my shop here. So I run airsoft war games, and in the background we run Halo songs or
Yeah.
things that have, and Hans Zimmer always pops up on my playlist, and he's
Oh
always
no,
like,
he's amazing. He's everywhere in everything. But yeah. Hey, they cancelled Halo as well on Paramount, which is a bit of a bummer. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, no, right. It's like, just keep it going, just keep it going. You got budgets to make Sharknado. You can keep making Halo. Okay.
Right. I mean, I thought the Master Chief was pretty good.
Yeah.
He was pretty stoic. Although you saw his face in the show, which you don't always in the game.
No.
But I thought I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good sci-fi. But there's some other good sci-fi around at the moment.
Oh yeah. I think you're awesome. You're awesome. Okay. And I know you're a major general, and it's Major General Dude, sir. Okay. I just want you to know that.
Mick's good.
Yeah, Mick, bro, you're cool, man. Now listen, I've had you for about 55 minutes of your time. I know you've taken time in Germany to set aside to talk to me. I want to thank
It's
you
been an absolute pleasure.
dude, I just want to thank you. I hope it wasn't what you were expecting. Okay. And I just
It's
want
way
you
better.
to, that's forever. I got that caught right there. Way better, dude. You're awesome. And I hope you stay awesome and just keep being a dad of daughters and remembering that that's what you have to steward. And they're looking up to you as much as all of the men that you've trained have looked up to you, as much as I am looking up to you. I get to meet people like you and learn from you in these moments, this hour of conversation where most people barely get 5 minutes of your time. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
A great honor to talk with you and meet you. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, hopefully we'll shake hands in a personal fashion at some point in our lives. I want to shout out to Kelly, who arranges us to, link up and talk. She does a great job. And Zoolander, you know who you are, and we're just going to make that stick, bro. So, I hope you're smiling. And to my listener and my viewer, this is a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm never going to take it for granted, nor am I going to take you, the listener and the viewer, for granted. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your comments and reaching out to me through the Instagrams and all those different avenues. And on behalf of Major General Mick Ryan, and real quick, let me plug his book, The War for Ukraine, Strategy and Adaptation Under Fire. Okay. I want you to go check it out. And if you want to link up for the Skydio Ascend 2024 event, go to
It's going to be a great event.
You heard it from him. It's Ascend or Skydio.com/ascend. And I think we'll have it hyperlinked so that people can click on it when they're looking at the podcast. If you have any last bits of words, I'll let you have them. Otherwise,
well, I was always told, if you ever give a tip, the best tip is be good to your mother. So I'll leave you with that. But it's been great to talk with you, and I do hope we get to shake hands and maybe share a beer at some point.
that would be a lovely, lovely time. Okay. And so with that, on behalf of Mick Ryan, and myself, Rad, and Brandon Webb, who runs the site, and Anton, my producer, go check out the loadoutroom.com. I'm going to be taking over all the articles and just placing everything. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to Bob Ross the crap out of the loadoutroom.com, but go support me. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Skydio, SOFREP.com, and the Loadout Room, this is Rad saying peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.